Okay, excellent. Now, I want to go back to this. I'm saying I'm being told to specifically that there's a specific data subject, right? And I'm saying, okay, well, let's say I want to address the needs of that data subject. And you haven't, like you started saying that I didn't have permission. You've resiled from that and said it's up to me to decide or to determine whether I have permission or
No,
not.
I'm not saying I'm not saying it's up to you to decide or determine. I said only you would be aware of.
Well, therefore, if you're not aware of it, okay, but if you're not aware of it, can I suggest that it's not your role to start presuming? Can I? To be fair.
Why would you think that?
That it's not your role to presume for other people?
Yeah. No, not to presume, but as I say, to advise, and that's the role of the office here, to advise on data protection matters, and we are advising you that if you do not have the express authorization from the 17 other individuals who are on the list of names and addresses and PPSNs, that if you do not have that authorization, we advise that you remove it immediately.
Okay, so can I just say what you've said there sort of augments what you wrote to me in an email, because that wouldn't have been said to me in an email. There was no thing as it didn't advise me. Remove.
I'd say it says under these circumstances, this office advises.
Okay, it's necessary for me to just pull up that email because just hold on. Okay, this is the section here that she's talking about, so I'll just play that back again.
It didn't advise me. Remove.
I'd say it says under these circumstances, this office advises.
Yeah, which you do not have consent to publish. Okay, sorry, I was incorrect.
Do not have.
Yeah, no, so I was incorrect there. Absolutely, I just want to.
Now, this is very important again. I mean, I had in my confusion in terms of dealing with this information, Paula absolutely correctly refers me to these words here. This office advises you should immediately. So she's absolutely wrong. Let me clarify that. Paul is absolutely correct and I'm absolutely wrong in relation to that. So I mean, that's an example of when in a forensics thing, when she says, yep, this is the story, because I can reference this data and say, yes, that's the material that she's talking about. Yep, okay, we're on the same page now. So I think it's quite a natural process within dialogue that you'll have that challenge until we can say, no, here's the detail. And we then, as an engineer working through my life in project development or whatever, it's not abnormal for people to have robust disagreements and tensions about things. But I think the difference is that in a collaborative reasoning process, a productive reasoning process, I have a quotation once used from the senior vice president in Sony, and in which he said, in our boardrooms we arm wrestle each other in order to strengthen each other's muscles. So the objective of the exercise is to build a better version of the data set. And we get back, because the data set in itself is neutral.
Sometimes this office advises.
Yeah, which you do not have consent to publish. Okay, sorry, I was incorrect.
Do not have.
No, so I was incorrect there, absolutely. I just want to, again, perhaps we're moving too quickly through this. Under these circumstances, this office advises you should immediately remove from the various websites on which you've posted any personal data which you do not have consent, including any individual's name. Okay, so I'm saying, leaving that to me to work that out for myself. I have a very specific one here, which is there's a complaint from a particular data subject. Mm-hmm. So therefore I'm saying, well, okay, that's something I should immediately address, because somebody's come out and said, I want this data removed from me. So I said, okay.
I would imagine if somebody has put in a complaint, would it not be that straight away that the automatic assumption is that they did not authorise you to put their information up there?
Oh, I haven't questioned that. Sorry, Paul, I think you misunderstand me. I didn't question that.
Sorry, is there somebody listening in on our conversation?
Maybe God.
No, because I can hear an echo every time I speak.
That's interesting, actually, because I didn't hear an echo in when I was using my mobile phone. I didn't hear the echo, but it obviously shows in the sound. The sound colour has changed quite drastically at that time. It's changed quite suddenly, but I hadn't actually invoked any changes on the machine. That's interesting.
Well, I mean, if you've ever used mobile phone technology in Ireland, that seems to be the way things are. It's just bad technology.
Okay, no, I thought maybe you had me on speaker or recording.
No, I don't have you on speakerphone, no.
Are you recording me, Mr. O'Donnell?
Absolutely. I record everything.
Well, you do.
Have you a problem with that, Paula?
Well, it's a bit late asking me now. You should have asked me that at the start of our conversation.
Why do you feel that?
So I suppose we're now again coming to this point of bifurcation, as I call it, where we, inevitably the rest of this recording will be a parting of ways, I suppose. So up to now I've been having a conversation with a senior public official. The fact we're having this phone conversation, I submit, has been critical, certainly been a critical value to me to work my way through the nuances and different details, and I have a lot more clarity up to that point. I have a lot more questions to ask I never got a chance to ask, but I have got a lot more clarity as a result of it. I think if I tried to get this clarity by writing emails, we would have been there forever. So I think it's a very useful tool. From my point of view, having that recording is of extreme value to me to work at exactly who said what was said, and exactly what was derived from that. So I can make sense out of that. And it's a true and absolute and accurate record of the data set that was created at the time. So we're now moving into an area of disagreement about the recording. So let's just see. Well, you can see obviously it was a change in the sound colour that stimulated Paula's statement. She was actually, what she said is, let's just see again what she talked about in terms of somebody listening in. But let's just find it. So the first thing she'd asked was this.
Sorry, is there somebody listening in on our conversation?
Now that's interesting, because what difference would it make to her if there's someone listening in on our conversation? This again, I'm fascinated by the way in which this dialogue brings me along a road of, this idea of Stasi type of secrecy. It would have been perfectly valid for me to have been having that conversation with her with an open speakerphone and other people reflecting with me about what was going on. There seems to be this irrational and bizarre desire on behalf of those in authority to freeze out the individual, leave them isolated if no one else can listen to this. There's nothing, just for the record, there is nothing secretive about this conversation. There is nothing secretive about this conversation. So we never got down that road. But imagine if I'd said, well, let's say I hadn't been recording, but it had been set on open mic. Well, it could have been that for many reasons. I could have been doing a bit of work in a men's shed or whatever. I could have been doing other things with my hands. And what objection would she have, or what's the rationale for objectives? So what she said then when she discovered the phone, or I was recording it, was, and again I just said,
are you recording me, Mr.
Absolutely. I record everything.
Well,
now just to say, I'm not sure. I could have as equally answered that question in some oblique way. I could have asked her, are you recording me? And then we had a philosophical dialogue about, well, what do you think of this recording? Without giving her a straight answer one way or the other, we could have really explored that thing. But I'm 4 or 5 years into the project of the Does It Matter research. I'm 60 years of age now, so I'm not sure what time I've left on the planet. So I'm really tired of the situation of having to deal with public officials, and I'm not really interested in seeing, firstly, why would I, if I had lied to her and said I'm not recording you and then put her on record and put something out there, I think that would be, well, let's say a lot more, well, certainly it would be, I was going to say beyond the Rubicon or whatever. I'm not really sure, because perhaps if I was exposing some terrible criminality that required that, someone else can argue, but then, like Oliver Conley in his missive there would argue that the end justifying the means. It wasn't valid in his situation at all, by the way, with Sergeant McCabe, because he argues that the means was illegal or unlawful, as he uses, which it wasn't. But there is a whole other Machiavellian argument about it in justifying the means. I don't believe I'm in that. I certainly don't believe I'm in that conversation at this point in time. Certainly not with this person. So I've come to the point of saying, if they ask me, yep, I'm recording a conversation. I think it's important to get a number of these into the space, like the last one with Magella, until we actually uncover what the dynamic is from the recipient, how they respond. We're going to see how Paula responds. And, she certainly brought in topics that I hadn't come across before, or certainly haven't discussed in the earlier videos.
You do.
Have you a problem with that, Paula?
Well, it's a bit late asking me now. You should have asked me that at the start of our conversation.
Why do you feel that?
Now that's interesting. She said, you should have asked me that at the start of the conversation. I'm going to project. I presume she's suggesting I should have asked, do you mind, or do you have your permission, or whatever. But it is interesting that she felt that she should be a gatekeeper on that right. And again, I think I presume that Paula believes the same way that Magella believes, that in some way that I am illegally doing what I'm doing, and what I've gone out of my way to try and produce in one of the first video I think in this playlist about looking at the issue of the legitimacy of recording, etc. I think I've provided ample evidence in relation to this happening on an everyday basis, particularly when we get these national exposes by our national broadcaster and we laud these apparent expositions to the public of wrongdoing, etc. And yet, Paula simply seems to believe that I should have asked her first. So let's find out on what that belief is based.
I mean, you're the data protection.
It's a common courtesy. I know it's a common courtesy, if nothing else.
So only courtesy.
So that's interesting. She says it's a common courtesy, if nothing else. And when I said that word, I was thinking the word difference between courtesy and curtsy, and as we curtsy in front of the Queen and the King, etc. So it brings in that whole idea of. I'm not saying that what courtesy means, but the idea of curtsying in front of people. There's that interesting crossover between power, domination, and control and subservience. That's involved there. But I hadn't thought of the line of courtesy. We're in the courtesy business now. I mean, I haven't experienced a lot of courtesy, by the way, as we will see in my other stuff from being dealt with by the Data Protection Commissioner. I have certainly not experienced much courtesy from the Central Statistics Office in the way in which I've been treated, by the way. But interesting, we talk about courtesy.
So only courtesy, is it? Is it only on the basis of courtesy?
Well, I would consider it courtesy. I am a public servant.
Sure, exactly.
So that's interesting. Again, she makes this as I am a public servant, and as this is in some way given her, I don't know, does that give her some extra protections or extra requirements for courtesy or whatever? Again, I would ask the viewer, do you have to think rationally about this stuff here? What does this make sense? Does it add up? I don't mean does it sound good. That's not really what I'm interested here at all. I'm asking, does it stack up?
Sure, exactly. You are a public servant, I am a civilian. We're having a conversation. There's no privacy elements of this conversation, is there?
Yeah. I do think it's a common courtesy that you say to somebody that you either have them on speakerphone or that you are recording them.
And okay, so I accept that you think it's a common courtesy. I mean, and I believe you're quite free to think that.
I'm not knowing, as I say, and you haven't seen your website.
So now we're moving. I just want, that's a little segment there on the courtesy line. So that's the fish line thrown out a hook about courtesy. If you'd any manners, if you're a decent sort of human being, you'd ask me to do that. So we're moving now into the next phase because it seems to me that Paula now is in recovery mode. She's trying to find it. She's looking for a position. So look, I'm just going to ask you to consider the next position she moves towards.
Being aware of what may happen this recording, Mr. Gogon. I may have to seek advice from one of my...
So I just want to replay that full thing.
Knowing, as I say, and you haven't seen your website, being aware of what may happen this recording, Mr. Gogon.
Now I find that quite interesting because that was recorded. I'm just trying to think when that was recorded. It was recorded on the 5th of May. And it was probably only on the 5th of May that I published as I took away the unlisted setting that was on the first of the recorded conversations that I published. So the world at large in terms of YouTube would only have had access to that recording yesterday morning. So she's, it's interesting. She's now displaying some sort of deeper knowledge of me or whatever. Like I'm just not just a person you just picked up. She said this about me there now. Listen to this.
Knowing, as I say, and you haven't seen your website, being aware of what may happen this recording, Mr. Gogon.
So, there's a question to be asked. I would offer in evidence that suggests that there's some preliminary work done by Paula in relation to researching me, the same that I would do about lots of people I deal with. I mean, I scope them out on the internet. I do my research before I do it. So this is, Paula didn't enter this conversation with me with with her eyes blinded at all. And I'm not sure what dialogue she had with who, whether it was internally in the CSO, and if it was, what it was with other people who are contaminated by their own past experience of me. And that goes all the way up to Helen Dixon, the commissioner, because that was a previous project a couple of months ago, which again is in the bin, the production bin for for future production when I get around to it, and that is interesting. Or whether she's been in dialogue with the CSO or what she's been doing. But she, to be fair, in terms of my intentionality of trying to engage people in an official capacity with this information, inevitably it's having some effect. Unfortunately, not necessarily the desired effect from my point of view, which is, by the way, to ask and invite people to collaborate with me following the 7 Nolan ISO Halo principles: integrity, selflessness, objectivity, honesty, accountability, leadership, and openness. ISO Halo. Those 7 ISO Halo principles of public service. That's what I'm asking to people to, collaborate with me along with them, or with them along with me, but let's work together to build towards a high trust society. That's what this whole project is really about. It's not about something else. It's certainly not about me having some sort of grievance with these people.
I may have to seek advice from one of my superior officers before I
about which? About what?
About this recording.
So we've now kicked for touch here totally. That's what she's going to do.
I may have to seek advice from one of my superior officers before
about which? About what?
About this recording.
So I think that's interesting. I mean, to be fair, up to now, Paula Forde has been really competent. Again, she's able to hold her ground. She's quite feisty. She's no problem in cutting across and holding her ground, and I've no difficulty whatsoever with that. But all of a sudden we've come into this different zone here where it doesn't seem to me she's too comfortable in this space. And again, we're in 2016. We've had lots of exposés about lots of things. We've had years of WikiLeaks and Edward Snowden, and I'm not anywhere like any. Sorry, not that I admire or otherwise, but the process I'm involved in are not about. Certainly, they possibly are about national sedition, but certainly not about national security in the normal way we think about any of these things. And I really would think that people should be having this debate, and if this process serves nothing other than create a public debate about these issues, and if it's an authentic debate, I think it can be into all our benefit. But it just appears to me that I'm going to kick for Dutch. I'm going to go upstairs to my boss now. She hasn't needed a boss before now, but she certainly needs one now.
So
I'm not sure what you mean by that. Sorry, hold on. Sorry, Paula,
yeah.
I don't know. You're having a conversation with me.
Yes, first of all, you didn't have the courtesy to tell me you were recording me, and only for I noticed an echo on the line.
Now, this is a move, an advance ahead of the previous conversation which I've recorded with Majella Lysett, the head of the data office in the CSO, again, another senior official, because her line was that I hadn't got her permission. Now, to be fair, this person I don't think has, yes, I don't believe she's used the word permission here yet. We're in the courtesy business now.
But the echo on the line hasn't. Sorry, can I just suggest, Paula, the echo on the line has nothing to do with you being recorded, okay? Okay, that's the first thing.
But only for I noticed that you wouldn't have told me you were recording.
Oh, no, I wouldn't have told you anyway.
No,
I mean, that's not the purpose. But
and as I say, knowing...
Sorry, it is interesting there to notice that strange coloration of the sound has gone away again, I think. But I wasn't aware of this. I wasn't aware of that change of sound during the recording.
And having seen some of the material that's up on your website.
When you see, which website are you talking about? You're talking about websites. I'm not sure what website you're talking about.